you the first step on creating a good rig, which is going to be like having symmetrical geometry. Like when I understand that there are some characters that needs to be asymmetrical, but it's really crucial to have the parts that are showing as symmetrical to have exactly as symmetrical. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to start by importing Gigi's mesh for the creature that she created. Beautiful creature that we have here. I just exported the whole mesh and imported it into the scene. Just going to create, just going to get rid of some stuff first. So as you can see, because I exported it as an OBJ, it's now just one mesh, right? So what I'm going to do first is that I'm going to separate the mesh. So we have two of them. And then I'm going to do delete by type history, right? The next thing is, so for this part, it's totally fine that it's not symmetrical. This is something that is going to be attached to the body. I'm just going to hide this from the outliner. Let's first just do some house cleaning. I don't like my outliner to look like this. I'm just going to call this one mask 1, call this one body 1, and then this one gr as in group, and then mesh. So I'm going to click on this mask and then I'm going to hit H on the keyboard, which is going to hide it from the outliner, right? So the next thing that I want to do is that this creature is almost symmetrical apart from the side that is the part on the top, right? So what I'm going to do is that first I'm going to separate these faces that are on the top, right? And then I'm going to cut the body in half. Oh no! Yes, I'm going to do that. Don't worry, I'm going to attach it back. So the next thing would be I'm going to cut this body in half and adjust the vertices that are in the middle exactly at the center line of the grid, right? And then I'm going to duplicate the mesh and combine the two halves together so I have an exactly symmetrical mesh, right? So let's do this together. So I'm going to go to face mode and then I'm going to just select this top part the best way that I can. Then I'm going to expand my selection by holding down shift on my keyboard and pressing the dot, which is going to be like next to the close to the right shift key on the keyboard, right? So I'm just going to expand my selection like this. This looks good, and then I'm going to extract from the selection by holding down Control and then double clicking on the faces that I don't want, right? Something like this. I'm thinking maybe, yeah, probably I need these faces too. Okay, so this is the asymmetrical part, right? So I'm just gonna shift right click on the keyboard, holding down shift, holding down right click. I'm gonna say extract faces. It's gonna be in the face mode. I'm just gonna right click and be like, go to object mode. So now I have this part of the body like separated, right? And I know that when I do this extract face or things like that, Maya is going to put them all in a group. So what I'm going to do is that the next thing would be I want to delete history on these two. So I get rid of the extra groups that are unnecessary. Delete by type. So I get this body that is now two object. That's why it's called this body group. And I have these two objects, right? So I'm going to put this top part into a display layer and set it to be okay. Something fun has happened here. Okay, let's just hide this. Okay, so I extracted the faces, right? And now I have this, let's just again put it into the display layer so we get a sense of what the actual geometry looks like. Put it in display layer, set it to be an T, which is going to show a wireframe of it, right? So what I'm going to do next is I want to select half of the faces of this creature and just delete them, right? So to do that, I'm just going to select this. So let's select both of them because I'm going to know, I know that I need to attach it back, so I want to move them together so they stay close. So I can see that this is approximately like, I'm trying to match this line in the middle to the line of the center of the grid, right this line, right? And I'm going to just pull it up so that the feet are touching the ground, right? You can see that although the parts look symmetrical, they're not symmetrical, right? That's what we're going to fix because that's going to make our life easier in the long run if we want to rig our character, right? So now this is, I want to say, yeah, that's good enough. That's a good start, right? So what I'm going to do next is that I'm going to create a locator because I love locators. I just use them all the time. And I want to match the pivot point of this creature to that locator that I just created because I know it's exactly at the center. So I'm clicking on the object. To change the pivot point, I'm going to hold down D, then I'm going to hold down V also because I want to snap the pivot point to the center of the project, which I already put a locator in there so it knows where to snap to, right? So now the pivot point is adjusted to the center of the project, right? So the next thing I want to do is that I want to go to face mode and I'm going to select half of the faces the best way that I can. Oopsie. It's better to do it in a wireframe mode, actually. I can see what I'm doing. Let's see what it's selecting. Yeah, I want to select these parts too. Okay, that looks good. So this is half of the character. Ooh, almost. So now I'm going to hit delete. Did I just deleted extra stuff? Yes, I did. Okay. Holding down Control, I extract from my selection. Then hit delete. So this is half of the character, right? So we have half of the character. And we can just duplicate it and combine the parts that are in the middle, right? But before we do that, it is really crucial to adjust all the vertices to this line. Why? Because when you do duplicate a special and mirror it, you don't want to go in and find those like tiny vertices and be like, oh, are you attached to the other vertices on the other side? And just ask them one by one. That would be like horrible, right? It's a nightmare. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go to Vertex Mode and I'm going to select all the vertices that I know when I duplicate this mesh, I'm going to be merging them, right? I'm going to click on this vertices on this one side and shift double click. Oopsie. Shift double click. Nope, it's not going to work like this. Okay. So I'm just going to click on this vertex, shift double click. On the one that is next to it, then I'm going to extract from my selection and yes, so now I have all the vertices that are right in the center, right? Let's take a look at them. Let's see. Okay. So now what I need to do is that I need to kind of snap them to this line, right? So we know that this is a snap to grid. I'm going to just turn this on. But let me show you something. So when you do this and try to, okay, so this worked because I have already adjusted the setting, but I want to show you something because by default, the setting is not like this. Okay, so if I reset the tool like this and I try to adjust it to the middle line, you can see that the distance between these vertices are preserved. I don't want that. I want all of them to snap to this middle line, right? So the way to tell Maya to don't preserve this distance, relative distance between the vertices, is to go to Move Snap Setting and check this Retain Component Spacing off. That's what it is. It retains the spacing between the components. We don't want that, right? So when I check this off, and while I have this snap to grid option selected, I can just move this, and you can see that it's going to be snapping everything to the grid lines. That's exactly what I want, right? So I'm going to just go back in to check that none of the vertices on here are like moving over to the other side. That's important, right? We want the border vertices to snap to the middle line of the grid, and all the vertices to be on one side of it. So now everything is ready to duplicate a special. Let me tell you like a trick that I acquired by experience. And the trick is, when you want to do duplicate a special, don't click away from your selection. Let it be selected. This is beneficial. You're going to see why in a couple of minutes. So I'm just going to do go to object mode. I have already set the pivot point of this object in the center of the project, right on top of itself. So I know when I use duplicate special, everything is going to be ready to go. So I'm just going to go to edit, duplicate special, just going to reset my settings so it matches yours. So by default, it's just going to do a duplicate as if you have hit Control D or something, right? But we want mirror, so it's going to be mirrored on the x-axis, right? So I'm just going to put -1 for scale, and then I hit apply. Voila, I get the other half, right? I'm almost there. So what I'm going to do next is that before you try to merge the vertices in the middle, they need to be one object, right? So I'm just going to select both of them and go to Mesh, Combine, right? So now I'm going to show you why I didn't deselect the vertices. So if I go to Vertex Mode, you can see that the object that I duplicated, the vertices are still selected. Isn't it nice? Now I just need to go in and merge the vertices that are right on top of each other. So I'm going to do Shift, right click, Merge Vertices. I'm going to go to the options for Merge Vertices. This is really important. You want to put the threshold really like low. Okay, if it's high, if it's like 0.1 or something, it might merge these two vertices if they're selected, right? We don't want that. This is me being paranoid, right? Because we only have the vertices that we want selected, but we don't want any unexpected result, right? So if you reset the setting, the default setting is this. I'm going to stick to that, and I'm going to hit apply. So now these two parts are merged, hopefully, with nothing weird in it. If I hit 3, you can see that it works fine. If you saw like a weird shadow when you clicked away like this, it's because it is on hardened, softened edges, something probably. And I can see that I get a little bit of bend here. That's you can fix that later. Or you can just ignore it. I would suggest after you duplicated the mesh, don't play around with the vertices that are not in the center. In this case, because I know that this kind of dent is because this vertex is a little bit down, I can just only grab that one and push it up. But only touch the vertices that are right in the middle. You suffered that much because you wanted a symmetrical mesh. So don't touch the vertices that are not in the center. Right? Okay. So now I have this geometry, which I know is symmetrical. I'm like, yay, it's all done. It's ready. I'm going to just delete history. And then I can go back to this part that is not symmetrical. And then try to match them. But before I do, before I combine them, I want to just give myself some space in these areas because, or do I? Let's see. Yeah, definitely on these parts, I'm going to just create some space for myself because I know I want to attach them together. So I just put this mesh into a display layer so I can see through it. Then I go to this, and I'm just gonna pull everything away. Don't pay that much attention to it. Like, it's not gonna be in the actual mesh when you combine them, because we can use target weld, and then they're gonna be attached. They're gonna be snapped to the points that they need to be snapped to, right? Let's see, what do we have here? I just want to create a little bit of space so when they snap and merge, I see that it's doing this, right? Because when they're right on top of each other, there's no way of knowing if it is if the points, if the vertices are actually merged, and I don't want to do the guessing game here. Yeah, I'm gonna pull this up, pull this up, pull this up. Okay, I think it's ready. Almost. Let's see how it works. First things first, let's just save this file as GG. This is not final because I tested it out before. This is going to be GG1. Save. Continue. Okay. So now we have these two meshes ready to be combined and merged, right? So I'm just going to go to Mesh and say Combine. The next thing I want to do is that I want to just attach them together, right? So I'm going to go to my modeling toolkit, grab this beautiful, beautiful target weld. I don't want to use it with the vertex. Let's just move to edge mode and then hit target weld. So now what you need to do is to use target weld, if it understands, to weld these edges together. You can attach to this one, not to that one yet. It's a little bit tricky. This. You know what? If the target weld tool is giving you a hard time the way that it gives a hard time to me, you can just first snap the vertices by going to move mode and then holding down V, and just snap them together right on top of each other. And the next, you want to just select them all and be like, ooh, what do we have here? So you can merge them later, but I can see that the number of edges are not the same here, the way that the geometry works. Make sure when you do these weld things, don't move the vertex of the part that you did the mirror for. Move the other part, like the top part in this case, right? So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to select these three vertices and I'm just going to merge them together, merge to the center. Now I think it's going to be like the same number of vertices, right? Hopefully. We'll see how it goes. Just going to do half of it. Nope. Okay, let's see how we can tackle this. I know this should be well to this. Always takes a little bit of time to mesh the geometry so it is nice and with a good edge flow. So let's see what we can do here. What can we do here? We can just fill it out later as a triangle. Triangles are not so bad, right? So I'm just gonna do this part really quick and okay. this is already rolled. So you get the idea, right? You just attach the part that was not symmetrical in your geometry. You just attach it back, right? But you don't, I cannot emphasize it enough. You don't move the part that you just did the beautiful symmetry thing on. You move the part that is not symmetrical and then merge it. Actually snap it. So you can see that I just snapped them. They're still not merged together. I need to go back in and merge them later, right? That's one thing I'm gonna do after I snapped all the vertices together in one place. Then I can go in and put the threshold really low and be like, merge the vertices, sorry, that are really exactly on top of each other, right? Okay. This is the part that gets a little bit tricky because I need to decide about the edge flow, right? Let's see. Let's see, where do I have this triangle? So I can just do this. So I have the triangle in symmetrical matter. I'm just gonna vote snap this, holding down D and V, right? Let's see. And if I hold down V, what did I do here? Let's see. I can just delete these vertices. Make sure when you want to delete vertices, you don't hit delete on the keyboard, right? We know that. Shift, oopsie, what just happened? Shift right click, delete vertex. That's how the edge with it is. It's not going to be a floating. It's not going to create an angle, right? So now in here we don't even have a triangle. We have like a quad or something, right? That's nice. So about here, let's see, what would be the best course of actions? Target both this to this, and then this to this. We're going to end up with a triangle here. That should be fine. As I said, triangles are not that bad, right? They're not as good as quads, but if you put them in the right place, they're not the worst thing in the geometry. In Maya, actually, if you're working with the game engines, triangles are like, yay, yummy, let's have all the triangles in the world. Okay, and I'm gonna end up with a quad here, which is fine. So now I just snap them together. Does it mean that they're just one mesh? No, no, no. We just snap them vertices on top of each other. What I'm gonna do next is that I'm gonna just select a bunch of vertices, right? And then I'm gonna do shift right click and do merge vertices. I know that the threshold is at 0.01, so I don't merge any other part of the geometry that I don't want. Hit apply and close, right? So if I hit 3 on the keyboard, you see that it is attached. Everything is nice and intact, beside the parts that is this actually 1, 2, 3. Okay, no, it's good. Unless the parts that are retained as a whole. So I'm just gonna double click to select the whole edge, and I'm gonna be like, fill the hole. Did it actually fill it? Yes, but it's backwards. So let's just delete history before we fill the hole. Sometimes Maya is having a hard time when you combine things. It's like, oh, what is the outside? What is the inside of the geometry? So we're gonna help Maya to understand that, and hopefully this time, do we have an angle? Oh, that is something. Did the face? Okay, delete. selecting the edges and fill the hole. Now it understands. See, you need to, work with Maya. Fill the hole. Fill the hole. Fill the hole. Oh, see, I forgot to merge these. I forgot to snap these parts, right? Let's just snap them. W, V. And what is this? So I'm going to just snap this to this. That is ugly. I don't like that. Let's see. Now what else we can do here? Oh, I can merge this with this first. So now I haven't merged them, right? I snapped them. So I'm just going to merge vertices. Apply. So these two are now merged. Just going to hit close. Now I have ended up with a quad. I can just, what? Oh, okay, so these two are not merged. So, okay. W, holding down V, snap. Now select merge. Hit 3. That's good. Go back to 1. And yeah, I don't need that either. Let's just snap this to this. Yeah, that's good. Merge. Yeah, it is now just one vertex. That's what we want. Select the edges and fill the hole. Object mode 3. That's good. I can see that I get a little bit of like dent here. You can go ahead and fix that, but again, make sure you're only moving the vertices that are right at the center so you don't ruin the symmetry, right? Was it in the center? Yes. Okay, so these are in the center. You can just move them around. Okay, if you're crazy like me and you want things perfect. But for this creature, actually, it has a mask, so I'm not going to be so worried about it, right? So now I have a perfectly symmetrical geometry part, aside from the top part, which is totally fine. That's the head. We don't need symmetry there. We need symmetry on the hands and on the legs before we start rigging the character. And as a last step, I'm just going to delete history. Nice and clean. You can just rename it to body 1 as it used to be before and put it back in place. And that's the end of this tutorial.